So I'm Arlen Kimmelman, and
I'm Adam Davis.
we're going to tag team the whole time, go back and forth. Hopefully that'll be interesting and still understandable for you. I have to assume that you can see our slides now. There they go. Okay, so we've introduced ourselves and we're ready for the next slide. So what this is about is what happens when what you think is relevant, usable data, but it's all over the place. So I'm the manager of an ambassador program for a small startup, and I got caught up in multiple data collection repositories and the inability to make meaningful sense of my data without manually tracking things. The manual tracking was driving me nuts. I collected data on many Google Sheets. So by the third year of data collection, it was more and more difficult to make yearly comparisons. So I'm a Google certified trainer. And so I had resources, by the end, we're going to show you your resources too. I contacted a Google certified trainer who happens to also be a diamond product expert for Google Sheets, who volunteered to help me with the mishmash of all this data that's currently in multiple separate spreadsheets. So having no prior experience with communities or ambassadors in under a year, he listened thoughtfully and thoroughly to my needs. He helped me identify precise parameters that I could define through the data. He showed me how to use the formulas necessary to link up the plethora of sheets. And moreover, he made suggestions for how the data collection could have been streamlined from the start to make data collection easier and more formula ready. And that's what we want to do for you. Hopefully we will keep you from making the same mistakes that I inherited. So what we want to do is we're going to show you a before and an after, how we got there, the pitfalls to avoid, and how to prepare data collection sheets before the numbers become unmanageable. We're also going to be using free products, which can help. Next slide. So again, I want to reiterate, we're not here today to prepare you to we are here today to help prepare you consult with someone who can help you. We are not providing your solution. We're discussing what we started with, where we wanted to go, and what we needed to do because we didn't have it yet. So, because we cannot do the work for you because we don't know your situation. We don't know your long-term goals. And if you know your long-term goals, you're going to be prepared for scalability. That word's been thrown around so much today. And you don't know what your scalability is yet. So we're going to discuss how that fits in with data collection as well when we discuss spreadsheets versus databases. It also helps to know your current process. Adam could only use what I could give him. I had to have all my data sources available and ready, and it made me prepared to have answers to the questions that I didn't even know I was going to have asked of me. And then you have to be able to articulate what your end goal is in mind. Even if it was messy, what is it you need? And in my case, my main goal was I didn't want to have to do it manual anymore. Click. Next slide.
So that's kind of where I had jumped in because Arlen had put out a question just in general asking, what can I do? How can I do this? And when I first saw the first spreadsheet, it was immediately, I don't know where all the data is coming from. And I had a lot of questions about what is the flow of the data and how is she trying to accomplish the goal that she wants to accomplish. So in order to get to the root of it, we had to start asking a lot of questions. And what we found was Arlen had some long-term goals in mind, but when she inherited all of the data from previous folks, they had not either thought through those long-term goals to begin with, or they were just trying to solve quick, small little problems and then move on to another one without thinking through the whole long term and where do you see your data being used in the future. So one of our biggest things is you have to think big You've got to plan for that big picture. Even if you're not sure you're going to get there in a few years, 5 years, 10 years, maybe next year. But if you don't think big and come up with, where do I want my projects to go, your data is going to dead end on you. And you're going to end up with what Arlen did, which was like a big pile of spaghetti on top of a plate. And all the data was all over the place, but it never flowed together in order to give her what she needed in the end.
And I mean, that could be as simple as take anniversary dates. So you have an onboarding date or an anniversary date. Mine were coming in from a Google form, so it became the timestamp. Timestamps have very specific date formats, date and time formats. So then when I'm collecting data for other things, how else might that data be used? And is that format then consistent in the other ways that I'm collecting data? If I have somebody put a date into a different form, if I have somebody type me a date, send me a date in an email, and then I'm transcribing it, or however, whatever, I mean, you don't know what you don't know. So if I started off with a form, that date format, it is to my benefit to figure out, how am I going to make that date format work in other situations? Or should I not rely on that timestamp and create a separate question to include date in a particular format? So you might have to pre-plan for things you didn't even know you needed.
Yep.
I didn't know what I needed. I inherited data, and then 3 years from now, I don't know what I'm going to need. And one of our examples again for this was pronouns. So we didn't know we needed pronouns 3 years ago. And so 3 years from now, how do I know what I'm going to need? So these type of things, how do you know it? It's the preparing for what you don't know as well, which is really difficult. Mm-hmm. Do you have something to say before we go to the next slide on this one, Adam?
No, let's jump to the next one. So when you do run into an issue where you have a problem, you're trying to solve it, your data doesn't seem to be helping, you're stuck. When you go to ask questions or find help on these questions, one of the things that we in the database and spreadsheet kind of area see is what is called an XY problem. And I don't know if that's been discussed anywhere today, but an XY problem is when you know where your data is, you know what your problem is, and so you ask a simplified question. I just need to do X, Y, or Z. And then the person answers that question for you. You put it into your spreadsheet and it doesn't work. And then you're stuck again. And you're like, well, that didn't work, but now I see I need this. So you ask another simplified question, and then you get a response, and then you put it in and you still don't have your answer. So that's an example of what an XY problem is. And to get around that, you need to be specific. Here is my data. Here is how my data is set up. And if your data has sensitive items in it, you can scrub it, make it anonymous, so that you can still share the structure of your data with the person. And they can then see, how can we take the data in the format that it's in and work it so that it will be to your advantage and not be like putting a Band-Aid on a big gaping wound.
And I just had a question. If that XY problem.info is not linkable for our presentation to come open, you're welcome to open another tab. It's a really simple URL to put in. Maybe it can be put into the chat, and then that will show those questions that Adam is showing. It's something you can refer to later if you want. And it's just, it's the logical thinking process that I didn't have I'm not a data developer. I'm not a data collector. I inherited stuff. And it really helped me understand how Adam was thinking and why he was asking me the questions he was asking. So that would be a good resource for you.
And the other reason for trying to avoid the XY problem is the consultant is basically walking into a room and opening a file cabinet and trying to look through the data and figure out how you have everything organized. And the more that you can give, the better that the consultant can find, research, and come up with the answer that you will need. If you give them very sketchy answers or as little as possible because you're afraid that you might give away some sort of secrets, then the answers you're going to give or get may not solve your problem.
And that was the biggest thing. I had people's addresses and emails and all of their social. I had all kinds of information that I didn't want other people to have. Mm-hmm. As a Google certified trainer, and because Adam is with Google as a certified product person, I trusted him in Sheets to be able to get in the next step we're going to show you. He was able to hide things from the public. So and I trusted him. So the person you consult with to do this with you, either you trust them or you scrub the data and give them samples like it. And we'll show you that in the next step. One of the important things, you see the list of things here on this slide that I hadn't thought of before. Am I going to use any of this data in a mail merge? I don't know. I was just setting up a community. Am I going, obviously I want to track hours of engagement. What did that look like? Did I have to get that from my timestamp? So it's all kinds of things of how you're collecting this data and what it's going to look like. And my problem was, and I'm going to switch now, I'm going to open up and show you there you can see that.
Version of the spreadsheet.
Pardon? Yes, this was, see all these tabs at the bottom? Each of those was actually their own spreadsheet. And some of them were on the same one, some were on different tabs. And I'm going to see, you're going to have to tell me because I won't be able to see it on mine. If I click another tab, are you seeing a new tab now?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, great. So I'm going to click around on my sheet. So here, this is blank because we had personal information in here.
But if you look up above, there's an orange tab. You can see where the formula is. And we had to start to bring all of her data together to then start looking for the common things that we could then use to link all of these different spreadsheets into one that then allowed the data to flow. So one of the problems that Arlen was having is what you may end up having also, which is there's a disconnect between what is a spreadsheet, which is what we're working with here, and what is a database. They look very similar in that they have cells with data inside of them. But a database will allow you to click and to change and edit things. And then any other instance of that data will get changed in the rest of the database. Spreadsheets aren't created that way. They don't have that interactivity amongst all of the data. Instead, the data flows from a source and then it goes to your end. And so you have to change the items from the source. And that's what we were trying to create here, was a source file, so that when you do change something, it will then disperse and go out to the rest of her items and reports and things that she was needing to do.
And because I don't have access to, for instance, Microsoft Access or anything like that, that my best bet was at least using one spreadsheet with all of these tabs, because if I control F on here and look for something, and then I'm just going to put in like APR and it's going to show me everywhere if I just hit the next tab and APR shows up in it, that search is still going to do it for me and I can find it on any tab. Sorry about that.
Yep.
Okay. So
some of it may not show up.
Right.
Just because of what we're hiding.
So here, yeah. So here, APR showed up in here. So my control F was the only thing I could do to make it act sort of like a database, but then I still had to go in and change by hand all of those things. They didn't flow together. The other thing about here, every single one of these, import range, whatever was in here, import range at the top of this one, import range at the top of this one, import range at the top of this one, import range at the top. Every single one, I had to, it was a mess. Next slide, please.
So as we were talking through these things, Arlen was giving me these problems. For example, some of her the representatives are from other cultures, and those other cultures then use their names differently. The For us, what might be a first name, which comes first, and then last name last, gets switched in the other cultures. And that was creating a lot of problems with their data, because sometimes they would enter their names as first last, and sometimes they entered it as last first. So we had to come up with some way of making it a forced choice, or that they would always do it the same way so that things would link together.
Right. And as far as this is an avoid page, so avoid using multiple spreadsheets. Yeah, spreadsheets. And then what you can do, it's okay to have multiple tabs more than multiple spreadsheets.
Yes.
Giving edit access to the original files, like I said, it's a trust issue. And we were able to show you what my spreadsheet looked like because Adam was able to hide things and mask them for me. So when asking for help, if you're going to ask general questions, this is obvious, you're going to get general answers. So provide explanations and details of your final results. Being new, I was still figuring out what my results are. I was lucky that Adam is his own little genius, and he was able to ask me questions. Well, have you thought of this? Have you thought of that? Hopefully you're a little bit more, I mean, maybe not. Maybe you're here because you are a newbie. Using the community to ask, what is it that I need to know? What is I need to track? Asking your other departments, asking marketing and asking sales, what is it that is important to you that'll be important to me for my community? Get involved with anybody who's going to help you get those final things, because what you don't know now may come back to bite you later. Mm-hmm. So you're better off planning for too much data that you won't use than not enough data that you have to go back and recreate.
And the other thing to think about is, don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to go out and find a consultant who would look at your database structure or your spreadsheet structure and give you suggestions of, have you thought about this? Or is this something that you're going to need in the future, so that you can plan ahead. You can get that data set up the way you need it to, so that you don't get into a spot where it's like, oh no, I need this now and I can't figure it out. And then you're scrambling to try and solve a problem quick, which is then that Band-Aid on a big gaping wound.
Or spaghetti without sauce.
Or that too.
Next slide, please.
All right. So if you don't know someone who is a spreadsheet or a database, or somebody who does data structure type things, where can you go? For free, there's lots of places. Number one, you can go to the Google Help Forum, which you can get to by going to support.google.com. And then you would want to look for the docs editor area. It's a little hidden. We don't know why they called it that, but docs editor is actually where you would go for sheets help. And I'm one of those people that helps out folks around the world. And we have experts from around the world speaking all the different languages that then will help you come through your data to come up with solutions for you. And usually our solutions are better when we're given more information to go off of. If you give us an XY topic problem, we'll give you an answer if we can, but it may not actually solve your problem. So be willing to talk to the support person also through the chat line or by the emails that go back and forth. There's also, once you get into that help forum, you can see who the Google product experts are. And we do have contacts that you can use to get in touch with us. So if there is one person in particular that you felt like really connected with you, you can contact them as well. Arlen has a wonderful service here where they will create tutorials for you so that you can help other people within your organization to do items that you may need done. And then if you're really feeling comfortable with your spreadsheets, you could go to Stack Overflow. Just know that Stack Overflow is also a place where a lot of developers and experts in data manipulation are found, and they can be a little picky about how you do things there. So you're going to have some learning curve in how to interact with those folks, but you're going to get some fantastic answers too once you get through that learning curve.
I'm not going to speak badly about them. They know their stuff, but it's been the situation where I tried that before I met Adam to use Stack Overflow, and I don't know the jargon.
Right.
And so because I didn't know the jargon, they spent more time correcting my question than answering it. That if I didn't know what question to ask, they weren't going to answer it.
Yep.
So if you don't know the jargon, that may not be the best place for you to start. Yep. As far as the Google people, I got really, really lucky. I'm a former teacher. Adam is a teacher. He's a band director. So he's overwhelmed and over busy and knows what it means. Like, I have 14 seconds of free time. I'll give it to you. I just got really, really lucky with the connection. There were 2 other people that I met as a result of doing this through Twitter. I put my question out on Twitter and tagged Google, with an @ with a handle, and they answered me, but one was kind of like out there. It just wasn't the same relationship. Another one was giving me the answers, but he was giving me the answers. He wasn't helping me learn how to do it. So depending what you want, you're going to find what you need out there if you look for the answers, the type of answer that you want. Either do it for me, work with me, or let's play and see what happens. It's all out there.
Exactly. Yep.
I don't know if I can share another tab or not under these circumstances. Maybe I'll just put the link in for them to share on your end. I put that into my chat for them to put into your chat. And showing you what happens with an IRAD, that's the 3rd bullet point here. It will open up directly into Sheets. And then all of the help that Google certified trainers have made for Sheets are in there in the form of a tutorial. So I don't know if you wanted to click on that and see what that did. It should open Google directly and show you the tabs. Thank you for sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we underestimated or overestimated how much information we had or needed. There's plenty of time now for Q&A. If there's something you want us to repeat, ask questions, go over, it's your call.
Fantastic. Arlen, Adam, that was just wonderful. And especially I love the hands-on demonstration. We love a little bit of, just data being, shown. And of course, data being, used to that great effect over there. So thanks again for preparing that. Mm-hmm. And of course, thanks to the team for making it happen. Of course, just moving between the sheets and the presentation. So
everybody's been so great today.
Yes,
I've been watching since this morning, and the technical aspect of this conference has been really, really reassuring. We have good people here.
Fantastic. So I think they do need to be proud of themselves. So really, really cool stuff. So it's great that we have a little bit of time to have some Q&A. We have a good question here from Anna. Is asking, it's a big question actually, how to track engagement in events online and in person. It's so hard for me because I think there's a lot of networking and more organic meetups. So what do you say about that as community professionals?
Well, the first thing that comes to my mind is you have qualitative and quantitative data coming together, which you will have to figure out, how do I take the qualitative data and what do I need from it? What am I looking for? If I'm looking just to track minutes, that can be done easily with things like a form on your phone. You can put things in. If it's more note based or something like that, it may be a form again where you would type things in. I met this person, this connection, whatever. But it's going to also be, where are you comfortable using the technology so that you can use it effectively? Because you don't want the technology to get in the way of your engagement. You want it to work and flow with you. So is there a specific kind of thing that she's looking for, or is it more just kind of that general kind of answer?
I guess we can take a generic angle, but we're encouraging Anna to elaborate if needs be. So definitely, it's a big concept anyway. So Arlen, any additions to that?
Well, I was just thinking about the situation where we're not in person. So there's so much, my product is a product that isn't tangible. We're not going to meet together in a place unless we meet somewhere where I can show you how to use the product. But the point of a community isn't necessarily to show you how to use a product, because then they think I'm selling it to you. So how do you connect it? I think it's ways in your back end of whatever program you're using. For instance, are people making comments? How many comments were made? How many people made comment, looking at a kind of a graph kind of thing, not where the lines, I don't even know the technical words to talk about this. So what are the connections, the flow chart? There you go. The flow chart of when this person made a comment, how many responses happened as a result of that? How many people did this person contact with comments? And were there any responses back? So the data flow comes in a way from the actual program that you're using to do the community. So the robustness of the community back end is pretty important for that kind of connection.
And if that's something, what Arlen is describing is something that you're trying to do with sheets or free products out there, you will need to think through, how are you tracking the individuals? And if you're using names, you'll want to do like a forced choice, a drop-down list, something that makes you have to use the same person's name in the same way every time, so that then your data will sync up and link together and show you the results that you need.
Right. And if you don't know their names ahead of time, you're going to have an explanation or a way to keep them separate. Keep first name separate from last name, so that if people switch, then at least you'd be able to change columns and make the data work better. If it's on a form, you can't always do that. So you might need to take your form, transpose it to another tab so that you can use it. But that was an issue. We international. I have a lot of Japanese and Korean users of IRAD. A lot of them became ambassadors for us, and they don't know what we want, which way we want their name. It was our problem, not theirs. They did what they thought we wanted, and we didn't know what we wanted. So it was our mistake for not knowing how we want our names.
Fantastic, and thanks for sharing. I absolutely love the the ongoing recommendations. As things came to your mind, those are some very valuable insights for Anna, and of course for anybody who's actually looking to get some tips on engagement, which is a major thing that we have to exercise in community management. So we've actually got another question that we may attempt to answer. What do you feel, from Marty's, what do you feel is a great place for managing community data? Are we to use Airtable? Oh, we use Airtable,
Okay.
Marty's is saying. So what are your thoughts on that?
I might not be the one to speak to it. Our community was made internally. So my higher ups looked at different, but before I even was brought on board for community, my higher ups looked at all the options out there and decided we're making our own.
Mm-hmm. I don't know Airtable specifically, so I can't speak to that, or if there's a better recommendation. But it's like any other products where you want to try and find the products that don't places too many hindrances on you, they allow you to do what you need to with your business or your community, so that if you're worrying about the tech more than you are about your community, then you have big problems and you need to switch it the other way around.
Thank you so much. And we have a great message from Anna saying, perfect explanation from both. So thank you. Now I have to work to people to answer my forms. Any tips are welcome. So any tips to increase return on, requests to answer forms, so to speak?
Oh, that's a tough one.
Yeah, that's the other end. Your community is
if you're using Google Forms, one of the things that can help very quickly is to learn how to use what's called a pre-filled URL, and it allows you to take data and automatically put it into the form, so that when they click on the link to open the form, their information is already there. Then they can go in and change it if they need to, or edit it, but they don't have to take the time to place the data in there that you already have. So using that pre-filled URL or something like that, if you're not using Google, would help with getting more responses.
Absolutely. And I was going to say, from the people end of it, having your users know that have the message up front. You have time. You can say, this is why I'm asking you this. You are helping me. You're helping you. I mean, that's kind of the obvious stuff, but, and then get back to them. If you say you're going to get back to them, get back to them. Offer them to give the results of whatever it is you're asking them, and then do it. And that will get back. That word of mouth will get back that this data just didn't go into the cloud somewhere and never come back. So I think having the give and take, if you're in a community, you're asking for something, they want it back.
It's about relationships.
Right.
Fantastic. Again, wonderful insights, coming back to back, which is very valuable for me and also for the other professionals listening to your talk. It looks like that is pretty much the end of the questions. There's actually a very cool and interesting, thoughts from Maggie, from Margaret, who's actually done an excellent job of collecting the questions and of course, being active in the chat. So thank you, Maggie. And Maggie's saying too much data is better than not enough data. So do you have any thoughts on that one?
Absolutely, because you can ignore it, but you can't get it back once it's gone, once you never caught it. And like I said, you don't know what you don't know. Ask it.
Ask questions. Ask questions. It's okay to ask questions.
Yeah. And the person who's setting up the sheet with you, even if you don't know, if your marketing people don't know, if the community doesn't know, if your community doesn't know, think of things that, where do you want to go? What could possibly mean something to you? What do you want your product to do in the future? What do you want to be able to do with? What don't you have the money to do now that you would in the future if you had the money? I mean, it could be a money thing and you're not asking because you can't do it. We ask all the time, what swag is good for you? My company's too small to give out swag. We give out stickers. Woo! So ask it. Don't let money be a limit for you.
Think big. Dream big.
Fantastic. Look, it's been absolutely wonderful, Arlen, Adam. You've given us some absolutely priceless, gifts and insights and everything. And thank you for selflessly sharing everything that you've learned through this process, and of course, some excellent tips for people to follow. Really, really, thank you from the bottom of our hearts, and definitely, it's been a fantastic session.